Hello and welcome to the May 7th, 2025 edition of the Mr. Joe Bipolar Podcast. My name is Mr. Joe. This is my neighborhood. This is my life. But this is our podcast journey. Welcome to the Mr. Joe Bipolar Podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Mr. Joe Bipolar Podcast. My name is Mr. Joe, and it is absolutely awesome to have everybody here with me today. And of course, it's always wonderful to be out there with you as well. I really started to notice that looking towards the right side, because when I record, actually, believe it or not, I have my phone right up in the air and like a little phone holder. So I'll just kind of stare at my phone as I record, but that causes me to turn my neck to the right. And I got to tell you guys, things have not improved at all. I said yesterday that nothing has gotten worse, but my good God, nothing has gotten better. And, like I said, the Advil did a number on my stomach, so nevertheless, here we are. It's May 7th, and believe it or not, May 6th, which was yesterday, and we put out an episode of the Mr. Joe Bipolar Podcast. Yesterday was actually a significant day for Mr. Joe, and for some reason I just kind of slipped my mind, but which, listen, is not out of the ordinary, especially when Mr. Joe is reporting on his mother. Because, listen, if we haven't learned by now, rehashing some of my mother's behavior, whether it be as a child or whether it be within my adolescence or adulthood, it's never an easy thing to discuss. And I even recall I had said something yesterday that I had mentioned I was going to inform my audience to see if it had any effect on my mother, and I never even reported on it. But in a nutshell, I think it was Sunday night, I actually reached out to her via text. You know what? Mr. Joe might as well read the text. Let's see if we got it, okay? Yeah. As you could see, my goodness, I am so prepared for all of my podcast episodes. Okay, here we go. So, Mom, I've been so busy coaching. I coach 3 teams, so I don't have a second. Now, that is Mr. Joe just kind of leading the way here, planting the seeds, so to speak, like, hey, lady, I ain't got a second, okay? I got your message about the plumber. That's a lot of money. What the hell did he have to do? I will check in with you soon, and you can let me know. Okay. Now, here's part 2 of the message. And, maybe this is why she hasn't reached out, but I wrote, just keep your, let's call it poop instead of the curse word. Just keep your poop together, Mom, and don't get all pissed off if I can't get right back to you. Before you get angry, stop and remember that I love you. So I actually sent her a video, too. I wrote, I'm not sure if you're able to view this video. See below. It was a video of my younger son hitting a double in baseball. And I wanted to throw her something, guys. I mean, listen, again, Mr. Joe's got to be honest always on the Mr. Joe Bipolar Podcast, and I said it before, I miss her, but unfortunately it makes it very, very simple to not miss her after I get these horrific messages that come through. So, nevertheless, that's what I wanted to report on. It was probably more necessary to get into it yesterday based on our topic, but listen, like I said, I forgot, so I didn't want to forget today. May 6th, which was yesterday, like I said, was a very significant day for Mr. Joe, and I'll get into it in a second. And I don't know why I didn't remember, but I'll explain in 1 second. Before I get into that, please visit my website. It's mrjoe.podbean.com. It's MISTERJOE. There is a donations and support button right on my website. If you click it, it'll pop open a new window, and it'll ask you to donate any amount of money. It does not have to be a reoccurring payment. It could be a penny if you want. And if not, Mr. Joe's Bipolar Podcast will always be offered for free. You can reach out via email. It's mrjoebp@yahoo.com. That's MRJOEBP. Utilize that same coupon code in all capital letters, MRJOEBP, if you decide to visit SoulCybin for microdosing. Go to soulcybin.org/MrJoeBP. And in addition, we have another wonderful website that also offers microdosing options. It's called PolkaDot, well, formerly known as PolkaDot, and its new website is now Gas Stash. That's GASSTASH.com/REF/1000/. So that's 1000. Alrighty. Whew, like I said, man, my neck and my back, it is an absolute disaster. My stomach is killing me. The Advil helped yesterday a little bit. I didn't take any more because I knew I would be just a complete disaster. I took a leave at night. I took a leave this morning. I mean, I am just bombarding my body with pain medication because I just don't know what else to do, guys. I really don't. I can't function anymore. And you want to know something so interesting? This just popped into my head, so I got to report on it, okay? I was ordered another MRI, and I know I reported on that the other day, so that's the next step. And when they called, I actually had my wife call because Mr. Joe is not capable of doing anything when it comes to that stuff. So she called, and, you know, they were ready to schedule, and they said, well, we want him to come to this particular place. And my wife turned around and said, listen, he really can't do a closed MRI. You know, he just can't do it. She didn't get into detail. But let me tell you, the doctors didn't want to hear it. They said, well, we don't really care. We cannot read the MRIs properly that come from open MRIs. So, lo and behold, yesterday I get a pop-up message from my pharmacy that 2 sedatives, also known as benzos or Valium, was sent to my prescription plan. I don't even know if that's how you say it, but whatever. You know what I'm talking about. A notification. Bam, your medication's ready. So I look, I said, what on earth is this? Well, first of all, they sent 5 milligrams, 2 pills. Like, give me a break. No offense. I mean, what on earth? What the hell do you think that's going to do for Mr. Joe? God forgive me. Okay, so that's what their approach is. Take 2 Valiums, go into an MRI, and see what you could do. Well, let me just tell you. They emailed me the other day and informed me that I needed the back MRI and, you know, kind of told me all that information as well. And I wrote them back and I said, well, what the hell, man? What about my neck? My neck is just as bad. And my wife had even said that to them, and they gave her a hard time. They said, well, you know, he didn't say anything about his neck, so we have nothing on file, and now we can't put it through the insurance company. And, I mean, give me a break. That's half of the reason why I went there the other day. The man could see that I couldn't even turn my head. So there was nothing but pushback and nonsense. So you want to know something? Like I said, I emailed them about my neck, and I never heard a word. Then my wife spoke to them, and the Valiums popped up. So I said, you know what? I'm emailing them again. I'm not even going to refer to the neck. Not even going to matter. Don't even worry about that right now. So I wrote to them. Oh, God, does Mr. Joe have to do this again? I mean, it is so sad. You got it. And now, you know, I don't even go on the right email. So let's go to my sent email. And, oh, perfect. Hi, Katie. I am receiving alerts that I have a script for diazepam. I tried that before, and it does not work. So now this is where I laid in. And guys, it's amazing. When you convey this stuff to a doctor, the response that you immediately get, they didn't give 2 craps when I, you know, was just a regular person. So I wrote, I have a mental health diagnosis of schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and claustrophobia. I am absolutely not able to go into a closed MRI. And now this is the most important thing, guys. For what it's worth, the last MRI that the doctor looked at right before my surgery, so again, Mr. Joe's audience, okay, this MRI is the basis of what he performed his surgery on, was done in an open MRI. It's the exact same as a closed. It just has a window to look out on the side. Please send me a script so I could schedule an MRI. And you want to know something? She wrote right back, I apologize for the miscommunication. I spoke with your spouse who said it was worth a try, which is an absolute lie. In that case, please let us know which facility you would like to go to for the open MRI, as well as their NPI number for authorization. Please see the attached scripts. And attached scripts are not only the lumbar spine, but the cervical spine, which is the neck and the lower back. So, finally, somebody listened to Mr. Joe. And it's a damn shame that I had to tell him I was a wackadoo in order for me to get this done. But, guys, listen, if a man's going to perform surgery, and he said, before I perform surgery, I have to get an MRI. I go and I get an MRI. And he performs surgery based on what he sees on that MRI. And now they won't let me go to the same place? Give me a break, okay? Get the heck out of here. But anyway, May 6th was yesterday, and I'll tell you why it was a significant day for Mr. Joe. It was actually the birthday of one of my best friends in the world, and we celebrated his birthday on May 6th many, many, many moons ago, back when Mr. Joe was in college. And yes, I know I reported on this story, so I'm not going to give you a whole background on it, but I'll tell you why it was significant, because it was obviously an incident in which Mr. Joe showed his true colors before medication, in which I was a complete drunk, an impulsive lowlife. I'm sorry. I know, sometimes after I say those words, it kind of upsets me when I listen back, because I don't want to upset anybody out there. I'll never call you guys those names. The only ones who really get called those names are myself and my ex-wife or my mother. And I apologize. I probably should be a little bit more chilled out. I guess that's the word I could use, but nevertheless, again, it's a perfect example of Mr. Joe's, mental illness and inability to make decisions and, like I said, impulsivity. So we celebrated my best buddy's birthday, and one of my fraternity brother's girlfriends had offered to take myself and my buddy home back to our college campus. And I didn't have to accept that ride at all. I could take a bus, and that's what I did every single night. So here's the problem. Mr. Joe's fraternity brother's girlfriend, okay, we'll just refer to her as someone else's girlfriend, was very flirtatious all night long. She whispered a few things into my ear. And you want to know something? I knew exactly why I was getting in that car and exactly why I was going back to my campus with her. I knew. Piece of garbage. That's what you are, Mr. Joe. No care in the world for whose feelings you're going to hurt. No care in the world about the fact that you got a girlfriend. Okay? One that treats you like absolute gold. No care in the world that you're wasted out of your mind and you're probably going to vomit, okay, when you get back to your room. Don't care. I just don't care. And it didn't matter, because I never made it back to my room, because Mr. Joe had no seatbelt on. I was wasted out of my mind. This particular person, she drifted from the right side to the left side of the road because she was bombed as well, and she hit a parked car head on. And Mr. Joe went right through the windshield. Now, when I say that, the windshield cracked and it kind of opened up. And, as far as I'm concerned, that's right through the windshield. And, it was an absolute disaster. And, I remember waking up in the hospital and I had these clamps, on my eyes, basically. And they were pulling glass out of my eyes. It was bad, guys. It was real bad. It screwed me up for a very long time. I had to get a lot of surgery on my face. They fixed my nose up real nice. I remember saying, make me look like a movie star, because that's how conceited I was. God, I think back to what an idiot I was, and it's so sad. But the other funny thing is, my best buddy, who, by the way, is somebody who we kind of referred to yesterday in terms of having a set of parents who had absolutely no idea what the hell that kid was doing. Never a mention of alcohol or drugs. And let me tell you something, he partied just like the best of us, all right? But he hid all that stuff. And I guess that was why his reaction and response was, after Mr. Joe got into this car accident, well, My buddy was in the back seat, buckled up, by the way, okay, and he ended up getting this big strap mark across his chest. But he unbuckled, got out of the car, and ran for the hills. in a town where we went to college, and he said he was jumping through backyards and, couldn't find his way back to campus, but he was so scared of getting in trouble. And, so that's how that ended up. Anyway, did we sue? Yes, we sued. As a matter of fact, listen to this one. I remember having to go to my lawyer with my parents, and my parents telling me, remember yesterday we spoke about my buddy who I bullied, who was my best friend, okay? Best friend in the world. Well, him and I were together, okay? I think we had actually had our fight already, and now we had made up. And I was at his home, and what did we do? We smoked marijuana. And what happens? I call my parents. I say, hey, Mom, Dad, I'm still at my buddy's house. I'll be home a little late tonight. Oh, no, you won't. You have your appointment with your lawyer to get money from this car accident. So I remember going home. I actually stopped off at the May 6th person who ran for the hills. We stopped off to see him on the way home at one of his jobs. And I remember looking at him and say, buddy, do I look high? And he goes, oh, God. He goes, I wouldn't go see your parents. And I said, well, that was the last thing I wanted to hear. So anyway, I actually remember going to my lawyer with my parents and probably being the top 5 most high that I ever was. I mean, I'm telling you guys, I still remember back to it. If you were that high and if you could remember back to being a certain way when you've smoked marijuana your entire life, yet you could actually recall a specific time and place in which you just were so whacked out of your mind, then you had to be real damn high. And I'll never forget, I didn't hear a single word that lawyer said. I don't know what I said. All I know is I would look out of the corner of my eye, and my father, he wanted to kill me. He knew. He absolutely knew. My father always knew. My father knew when I went to his house and bought him marijuana, and my arrival consisted of, here you go, Dad, by the way, I'm on cocaine, without saying it. I mean, the man knew. There is no doubt. He actually told me later on, in the week that he knew, and he was actually a little worried about me. And I recall him saying, are you going to be able to drive and blah, blah, blah. But you would think that this man would have turned around and been like, son, you're not going anywhere. You look like you're a lunatic right now. Nope. None of that stuff went on with Mr. Joe. So for all he knew, I could have pulled out of the driveway and been dead, when I got down the block. But again, nobody seemed to care about that stuff. So anyway, that was May 6th. That was the day. And it's significant also because, believe it or not, it's the day that my grandfather, my mother's grandfather, passed away. I mean, my mother's dad. So my grandfather passed away. So a lot of significancy, is that a word? God only knows. In particular with that specific date of May 6th. Not a great day by any stretch of the imagination, but a great day for my buddy. And it's nice that I could celebrate that with him. So, one thing I won't celebrate, for sure, is my finger as I wrap it up. Good God, guys, I'm telling you, the nail is still on, if you could believe it, all right? It's hanging by a thread. Hanging by a thread. I am so mortified. Well, I don't even know. Mortified in front of my players that I coach. That's number one, because every single one of them has a comment. If I don't put my little wrap on, they'll, wow, what happened to your finger? Okay, you know how it goes. But moral of the story, let's not spend too much time on a finger. I'm telling you guys, I'm not going to be able to look at it. I don't know what to expect. I have not Googled it. If you could imagine, Mr. Joe has not typed in the words broken, falling off fingernail, what's to expect, what does it look like? I haven't done it. I swear, I haven't done it. I have no idea what to expect. If somebody turns to me and tells me, oh, I had that, I go, I don't care. I don't care. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to know. I want it to be a surprise because I'm scared. I'm scared to death. I know it sounds insane, but I don't know what to expect, and I am in no mood to deal with this. So, anyway, guys, I'll tell you another thing that's been getting to me, and thank good God I don't have to deal with it anymore. Listen, I don't like to talk about work, okay? I refuse to talk about any of my staff members. I refuse to talk about what goes on with my students. I refuse to talk about anything other than the fact that I am a special education teacher, and I am very, very happy. Now, one of the things that goes on with Mr. Joe, and probably based off the fact that I have a lot of experience, guys. We're going on 26, 27 years of experience. They will throw a student teacher into Mr. Joe's room all the time, okay? And thank good God. And again, she was a sweetheart. She was phenomenal in terms of her knowledge, especially based on the fact that she had twins and one of them had autism. So she knew quite a bit. Here's the problem. She was an absolute lunatic. Guys, I'm telling you right now, you want to talk about somebody who just baffled my mind, okay? First of all, I have never seen somebody cry so much in my life. You don't really know us that well. The woman was crying on day 2. Came in, gave us a whole sob story, hysterical crying. For what it's worth, by the way, all the weeks of student teaching, I think she missed like 3 or 4 days. I mean, and what was her reasoning? Oh, I'm having a morning. I just can't come in. Boo hoo hoo. So she was the epitome of somebody who had a mental health issue. And I told her. She told me she thought she was on the spectrum. I happen to agree. But that wasn't the issue with this woman. The issue was that she couldn't keep her crap together no matter what. Even when she was successful, and she did very well with her lessons. She was observed twice by her professor. She did excellent. I was so proud of her. She cried. She cried before. She cried after. She cried all day. What's the problem? I didn't get, what was the word? Not exceptional, but extra exceptional, or, whatever. The one over exceptional. I didn't get it. Boo hoo hoo. I mean, every damn thing. If I turned to her and I said, oh, here's the other thing. We were going to do a field trip one day during her observation. And I turned around and I said, no. We can't do that field trip. We got an observation. She looks at me and she goes, oh, no, I messed everything up. I go, what are you talking about? I go, we've been preparing for this for weeks. I go, we could go on a field trip anytime. So what did she do? She cried. Guys, I'm telling you right now, the woman cried about everything. And it was disturbing. And listen, Mr. Joe has cried his whole life. There have been times I cried my eyes out. I still cry. Although I got to tell you, it's been better. I don't cry a whole lot anymore, guys, which is very interesting. I actually don't deal with a whole lot of depression either, for what it's worth. But we'll get into that another time. But this woman just cried. That's all she did. Uncontrollable crying. I guess you could call them uncontrollable crying spells. And she was embarrassed, no doubt about it. But here's the thing. There was really no clear reason for these crying spells. And it was almost like it was impossible for her to stop. No matter what I did, if I rubbed her arm, if I said it was okay, if I, consoled her and hugged her, this woman could not stop. Okay? She couldn't stop. She could not stop crying. Uncontrollable crying. And obviously, those crying episodes, well, what are they triggered by? I would say different mental health conditions, maybe even some different physical conditions as well. And, unfortunately for her, she was certainly not in shape. She was very out of shape, to her own admittance. So I don't know, did that play a role as well? What I do know is her crying was uncontrollable and unbearable. Now, according to her, she does have a therapist, and she sees her therapist, and it's an opportunity for her to learn some coping skills to gain, well, really, if I'm thinking about it, to regain a sense of control, because there are moments in which she appeared to be completely normal. Completely normal. So you say to yourself, okay, it's natural to cry. Mr. Joe cries, you cry, we all cry. Okay, while it's natural to cry during some kind of an event, a death, you got fired, somebody's hurt, okay, loss of a loved one, yes, significant life changes, that's what I'm referring to. It's okay to cry, okay? But uncontrollable crying actually feels a heck of a lot different, because it's not just about feeling sad. It's a constant, ongoing, undeniable, overwhelming response that basically seems to come out of nowhere with no clear reason, no explanation, and quite honestly, no relief. Because I'll tell you right now, when she cried, she didn't seem to be better. And I don't know if it's because she's got this deep-rooted emotional pain, or, obviously there's some underlying stress there, being a student teacher and, dealing with a son with autism, physically exhausted. That's the way she appeared every single day. And it's her job and her therapist's job to find out what the hell is going on and understand where the root causes come from. I mean, are you depressed? Because let me tell you something, depression, without a doubt, can cause uncontrollable crying. It screws up the way that we regulate our emotions, making it a heck of a lot harder to manage those feelings that usually may be more manageable. Because when you're depressed, even those small little things, they feel completely overwhelming. Like being unable to get the key into the lock when you're trying to get into your house. Okay? That's very stressful for Mr. Joe sometimes. And what does that lead to? Well, it leads to this heightened emotional response. Now, thankfully, I'm not crying at the front door. But if you're depressed, and maybe I'm not crying because I'm not depressed, because if I was depressed, we know that depression changes impacts, changes, I don't know what the word is, but the brain chemistry. I don't know necessarily if it's changing your brain chemistry, but it's certainly impacting it, okay? Impacting all the parts of your brain that control your mood. And basically, when you're depressed, because you're in a depression, your brain chemistry is feeling worthless, feeling hopeless, feeling sadness. It's intensifying those feelings because you have an alteration in your brain chemistry. And as a result of this, you might find yourself crying uncontrollably. And that there doesn't have to be a clear trigger, because your emotions are much harder to control. So we don't have to go through the signs of depression again, guys. We know what they are, all right? But if you're feeling those negative beliefs about yourself, if you're feeling negative about the world in general, if you don't have self-esteem and self-confidence, let me tell you something. This woman didn't have a single solitary ounce of self-confidence. She would speak very slowly. She would move very slowly. She basically told me that she had zero interest in all the things that she used to enjoy. She told me she can't make phone calls to order things, to go places, to make doctor's appointments. She's constantly isolating herself from social interactions. Listen, she called in several times. We know what that's like with bipolar disorder. We know. I mean, we got sleep disturbances. And I'm not saying she has bipolar disorder, but, there's a good chance that depression is the culprit, or anxiety. Because anxiety, as we know, can lead to that uncontrollable crying as well. And when the anxiety levels rise, your body experiences this surge of stress hormones like cortisol. We've talked about it a million times. Put that in conjunction with your adrenaline, which basically overloads, overwhelms, and over impacts our nervous system. And as the anxiety builds, your emotions, they start to feel way too intense to manage, and crying becomes that natural release for all that built up tension. And as we know, with anxiety, it's not always tied to a specific reason. It's just simply sometimes your body's way of dealing with the emotional overload. And then, unfortunately, and we've spoken about it so many times, I don't even like bringing it up often, because I always fear that I'm going to trigger something in somebody, and I never want to do that. But panic attacks, let me tell you something, crying could be extremely intense during panic attacks. Your body reacts as if there is a big time danger about to invade, when in actuality there isn't. And Mr. Joe can tell you that based on 1,000 stories that I've given you. Okay, whether I'm driving in a car, in an elevator, okay, in a social situation, sitting in an office with a boss, who knows? Okay, that doesn't mean there's serious danger involved, but our body reacts like we're in danger, and then we get those physical symptoms: the pounding heart, the shortness of breath, the sense of being scared. And it becomes so powerful that it's literally impossible to keep those emotions in check. And that's when these moments of crying take place. Because again, it's your body's response to all that extra fear and that extra stress and the fact that you're experiencing all at once. So we know the anxiety signs, guys. We do not have to get into them. Okay, I just mentioned a few of them. Okay, but if you're racing thoughts are invading your brain, that is a pure sign of anxiety. Let me tell you something else that she was doing. Constantly fidgeting and restless. She had this restlessness about her, fidgeting with her hair, fidgeting with her hands, kind of like cupping them together and, let me do it, almost like going back and forth with her hands, like taking her hands and almost like she's washing them in thin air. So, you want to talk about a increased psychological activation. I mean, you're talking about basically a psychological activation that is not only going to screw your brain up, but it's going to start to affect your body, your physical body. And I just mentioned the faster heart rate and the breathing. And let me tell you something, even Mr. Joe had horrible digestive issues too, when I used to suffer from panic attacks and from the anxiety, and listen, we also spoke about burning out. This student teacher of mine, maybe burnout was triggering the uncontrollable crying, because when you're burned out, you're exhausted. Your emotions, there is relentless, overwhelming stress. And all this teacher did was procrastinate. All she did was talk poorly about herself. And as a result, what did you get? You got a outpouring of these pent-up emotions, which again result in the uncontrollable crying. I'm trying to figure it out, because I've never seen anything like it. It's very sad, because even one of my teachers, they had said to me, because after her observation, she had to leave the classroom and go talk to the professor. So one of my teacher's assistants turns to me and says, "I guarantee she comes back crying." And sure as anything, boo-hoo-hoo. Well, what are you crying about? She was crying because instead of getting highly effective on every single thing she did, some of them were effective. Nothing lower than that. I think I mentioned this in the beginning. But because it wasn't all highly effective, she had this overwhelming feeling of anxiety and disappointment and, this invasion basically in her brain of these overwhelming emotions that ultimately come out in tears. So, I think of grief too. Also, when I think of crying uncontrollably, I can't help but think of my dad. Okay, because obviously that's an extremely powerful experience when you are completely altering your entire state of mind or your emotional state. And I know that with me, I did a lot of crying with my dad, a lot of crying, and it would come in waves. I would get angry, I would get sad, I would miss him. I mean, all these things would happen, one after another or one at a time. And, one thing would happen, another week later it would happen, something else, where I would then be yelling at him up in heaven. And what does it lead to? Uncontrollable crying spells. Because I never had the proper ways to cope with the loss of my father. I felt like I lost control over everything in my life. My mother, let's not even go there. Let's not even go there. Now, the other thing you got to think about, guys, is, believe it or not, this has an impact, or it could have an impact, about your hormones. Because they play a major role in your ability to manage your emotional distress. And anytime you have a change in your hormones, and I know because I have changes all the time based on my testosterone levels, okay, that is going to be related to your emotional health. How many times? Serotonin, cortisol, dopamine. We've discussed them all part of hormone changes, and they can result in these unexpected and these ridiculous, unexplained reactions that basically are headlined by uncontrollable crying. And, I remember doing actually an episode on postpartum depression. And again, my wife was never in depression with postpartum, but there you go. There's hormone changes, menopause. Think about withdrawing from drugs. I know it doesn't really necessarily affect your hormones, but believe it or not, it can. It can. I mean, if you're withdrawing from drugs, I got news for you. Your cortisol is going to be affected. Your dopamine is going to be affected. Why the heck did Mr. Joe want to constantly do cocaine? Well, because my dopamine receptors, they were activated. And what you want is more and more and more. And now I'm not doing it anymore. So guess what? I'm withdrawing. Even if it's not a physical withdrawal, an acute physical withdrawal, you're still withdrawing. And what are you affecting? You're affecting the chemicals in your brain along with the hormones. Okay? So I can't really think of anything else in terms of, why we would cry uncontrollably. I mean, sometimes you could be lonely, and it's as simple as that. I mean, because you got no connection with other people. And I recall being like that, too. I recall being in my home, feeling completely isolated, feeling this overwhelming, horrible feeling of emptiness and this sadness. Like, hey, everybody else is out. You can't even get your butt out of bed. So there's Mr. Joe's mind trying every way possible to express how badly I really needed that social interaction, but yet I couldn't bring myself to do it. So, end result, I'm lonely. I mean, what's going to happen? I would imagine some uncontrollable crying. And I think the biggest thing that this particular student teacher dealt with was a feeling of, I think she struggled with her self-esteem and her self-worth. She almost felt ashamed of everything that she did. She felt like she was just completely flawed, completely unlovable, wrong about everything. Not knowledgeable. These are the things that she said about herself. So you don't think if you feel these ways, almost like shame is going to trigger that uncontrollable crying, because it's impacting your emotional distress or emotional state. And bam, crying spells. And guess what? Then, all of a sudden, what I used to see is she would start crying, and it almost appeared as if she was ashamed that she was uncontrollably crying, which ultimately creates this vicious shame cycle that makes it hard to stop. So she was overwhelmed. She was exhausted, that woman. And I'm not making excuses for her, but based on the stories that she told me, the things that she was dealing with her twins, one was on the spectrum, one was not. It didn't matter what challenge she was faced with, okay? It didn't matter big or small. Everything was overwhelming to her. And she was exhausted, and crying essentially becomes a way to release that built-up tension and frustration, because you can't do it in a normal fashion because you're exhausted. Absolutely exhausted. I used to cry when I was angry, believe it or not. I know it sounds crazy, but crying and anger, they could occur together. So, when I was angry, man, there were times when I could not stop. And I didn't even know why sometimes. It was just a way to release those deep, deep feelings of anger. And a lot of times that was towards my father. A lot of times towards my mother as well. So, and obviously, guys, throwing a little bit of bipolar there with the mania and the hypomania, and guess what? And unfortunately with Mr. Joe and the mixed episodes and all that nonsense. Come on, guys. It is absolutely possible that if you are in the midst of one of your bipolar mood swings, you're going to cry. It's very possible. And listen, I'm not going into the bipolar symptoms again, okay? But listen, here's what it comes down to. Experiencing that uncontrollable crying is extremely frustrating, without a doubt. I know it because I've been there. It's confusing, because you don't know why it's happening sometimes. And regardless of the cause of the crying, those crying spells, they can impact every area of one's life, almost like an intrusion on their routine and their ability to remain stable. I mean, that's why this woman constantly talked about isolating herself. And think about Mr. Joe. I didn't even want to go to I didn't even go to my bachelor party because I uncontrollably cried. I was embarrassed to be in a social situation. I didn't want to have any connection with other people. Nothing. So, think about that, guys, how uncontrollable crying will impact you. And it's very hard to imagine how you're able to even stop crying when you feel like you're crying too much. Believe it or not. I mean, I feel that she couldn't stop no matter what. And I think I mentioned that before. No matter what the hell I tried to do to make her feel better, it didn't matter. She absolutely could not stop. So, a lot to do. And you know what? She's no longer student teaching. She's about to start her job. And my God, I hope that she succeeds and doesn't allow that emotional distress and the uncontrollable crying to invade into her personal life and professional life. Well, it's already in her personal life, obviously. But, and to some extent, her professional life. Who's to say? She don't even know us, and she's bawling. Once she gets around people she knows, oh boy, what's going to happen then? Now listen, let's get one thing perfectly straight. Mr. Joe is a crier. I cry over a lot of stuff. But I keep it in check. I cry at appropriate... Well, I might think I cry at appropriate times, but listen, it's just different. Listen, we all know, or at least those of you who are mentally ill, like Mr. Joe, we know what that mental ill cry feels like. I'm actually doing the quotes right now as I speak when I say mentally ill cry. There's no definition for that. I never pulled that out of a DSM-5, but that mentally ill cry is so much more different than any other cry that anybody could ever experience. People cry because they're sad. I cried because I was sad at times. People cry because they're in pain. I cried when my Novocaine ran off when I had 2 of my teeth pulled. I cried. from physical pain. Okay? I've cried uncontrollably, sobbing like a big blubbering baby for things that I did wrong, but I'd like to play victim. And I got to the point sometimes where I'd cry so much and play victim that I actually believed myself. I then started to believe myself as to be the victim. I mean, I know we're going off in all kinds of places here, guys, but, let's face it, okay? I'll say it again. I say it all. I feel like I say it all the time. But what would Mr. Joe's podcast be without being honest? And you want to know? You want to know why I say it all the time? Because every episode, I'm saying something that is outlandish and, quite honestly, unbelievable, and probably something that a lot of people would not admit to. But I cried to fake cry at times. Okay? I was able to make myself cry. I could probably still do it if I wanted to. I don't see the normalcy in that. I find that to be absolutely ridiculous, if you ask me. But Mr. Joe was ridiculous. He was insane. So, when I think of crying, guys, I want to say if I think of my crying and I think of the, student teachers crying, I really feel like most of it stems from anxiety. And even if you want to call it anxiety crying, I mean, and I'm sure there are plenty of resources out there that'll more or less say that anxiety crying for no reason is a problem. Because yes, okay, can anxiety itself cause crying for no reason? Yes, it can. Anxiety, stress, sleeping problems, depression can cause anxiety crying spells for no reason. And you say to yourself, well, how the hell does that make sense? You're saying all these things, the stress, the sleep disruption, but, you shouldn't be crying because you didn't get any sleep. You shouldn't be crying because you're nervous for that test. You shouldn't be crying because you have ongoing stress based on the fact that you have to study for a test. That's all normal anxiety. And it's okay to cry sometimes when you have anxiety, but it all depends on how much crying and for how long. So you say, what causes anxiety crying spells? I mean, think about this. No reason. I mean, that's what it comes down to. No reason. I mean, I tried to play a little game there with you. All right, what causes it? No reason. And what do you feel like when there's no reason for crying? Well, you feel like you're crying all the time for no reason. And it'll happen unexpectedly. It'll happen with no clear, cut, and dry explanation. And you could sometimes cry, but you can't even figure out why. Since guess what? You're not even sad about anything in particular. And then you find yourself frequently feeling like crying, but yet you're not really a crier. I mean, could you imagine? And even though you feel sad enough sometimes to cry, you aren't sure why the hell you feel this way. And God bless you, because once the anxiety crying starts, my friends, it is very hard to stop. And I know that. I know that because I was a weepy, wallowing wackadoo at times. And I couldn't even put my damn finger on it. I would feel so emotional that I would literally cry all the time. So I was there. I was there. But you know what? Here's the difference, okay? And I'm going to say it loud. I somehow, some way, for the most part, always was able to keep that uncontrollable crying to a bare minimum when I was out in public or when I was around people. And listen, it was very hard for me when I used to have panic attacks to not cry, because we refer to panic attacks as, in my opinion, something to be very serious, severe. And obviously something as powerful as an anxiety or a panic attack. There's really no anxiety attacks. There's a panic attack. But they are top of the line when it comes to producing some really heavy, strong emotional reactions. And guess what? These strong emotional reactions, well, it's going to cause some people to cry. And honestly, I used to cry after the panic attack has ended sometimes, because I was so bent out of shape about the after effects of the experience that I just endured. So, and you got to say to yourself, she definitely had a lot of stress in her life. What I found to be stressful is probably different from what her stress is. But stress, and even more so the chronic stress, is going to mess with your brain chemicals. I'm telling you right now, the way your brain functions. And if your brain functions are being screwed with, well, your thinking, your emotional processing, all that stuff is going to be off. And it's almost like your emotions sometimes will feel numb, or they feel wrong. Does that make sense? Could you imagine that? I don't know if anybody could understand that, but it's a feeling of numbness almost, and back and forth, like a flip-flop of emotions. I wish I could explain it better. But again, it's almost like whatever emotions you're feeling based off of the stress, it just feels wrong. It's almost like you can't put your finger on it. No, end result, guess what? Cry. You got to address it. Unless you address your anxiety, well, then you're not going to prevent panic attacks. And in retrospect, that it would be very difficult to eliminate those anxiety crying spells. Eliminate your chronic stress. Maybe you got to change your medications. I don't know. Maybe sometimes side effects with certain medications. You're withdrawing. Listen, don't ever stop anything without talking to your doctor. I'm telling you right now. Guys, listen to me. If I want to put my finger on one of the top times that I have cried, it had to have been coming off Cymbalta. I'm telling you right now, I never cry. Actually thinking about it makes me want to cry. That's how much I cried when I was coming off Cymbalta. So, listen, we come to this conclusion: anxiety itself, panic attacks, stress, depression, medication, like we just said, can all cause anxiety crying spells. And again, God, that Cymbalta. Oh my God! Listen, I didn't come off really the right way. I definitely weaned myself off way too much. Okay, but this is something that I wanted to focus on this today, because in retrospect, guys, here's what it comes down to. You know, I may make fun in a joking way. I may take somebody's misery, because this is essentially what I'm doing. Unfortunately, I've taken someone's misery and I've developed an episode out of it. Could you imagine? But here's the God's honest truth, and I know you all know this. My heart is absolutely broken for this woman. It's absolutely broken. The poor woman doesn't know if she's coming or going, and my heart is broken for her. My heart is broken for her family, because I could only imagine what goes on in that household. And, you know, they're in a different... Listen, we all have different things that go on in our houses, okay? Some of us are dealing with yelling and screaming right now and mood changes with their significant other. Some of us are dealing with, a significant other who is just having panic attacks, and you're trying to get them through it, and you don't understand, what's really going on, but all you know is that they're scared of everything. Some of us have partners and people or friends that are depressed out of their minds, And you're dealing with that. You're watching somebody you love hang out in a bed, not being able to get up. Some of us have people we love that just acted like Mr. Joe and are spending the night in jail. And, we feel bad. Guess what? I feel bad. I feel bad for this woman. Because I want to help her, and I don't know how. I honestly do not know how. Listen, it is okay to cry when you have anxiety, because crying in a moderation, it could help relieve those pent-up emotions that we all carry. But if we are crying, guys, too much, too frequently, things are dramatic when we're crying, and that crying stresses out our body, which in turn brings out the anxiety and stress, causing all of these horrible things to persist, and then even cause a more increase in symptoms, like now we find ourselves we're being depressed. Come on, guys. Sadness is an emotion, which is most often caused by the way that we think. And emotions are temporary, and they can be stopped or changed by changing our thinking. So if you want to stop crying instantly, change your thinking to something pleasant, something funny, something upbeat, hopeful, exciting. Maybe in a few moments, then your emotions will change for the better. But you know what you also got to do, everybody? Soldier on. Soldier on, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to the Mr. Joe Bipolar Podcast. I absolutely love yous all. You have a wonderful day or night wherever you're at in Mr. Joe's neighborhood. As you can see, Mr. Joe never wants to leave, but it's time to go. Love yous all. Have a great night. Talk to you again in a few days. Thanks again.